Playing lots of different sports will help you improve in your main sport. The more volleyball I've played, the more I've come to appreciate this fact. And more awareness of this helps with the transfer of skills between sports. For example, it makes me more likely to think to approach a problem I might have in volleyball in the way I might have done in a different sport, like let's say golf. For example, maybe I want to take the putting routine I have before I putt in golf and use that as a routine before I serve in volleyball. Something that comes up a lot when you hear people talking about the merits of playing lots of different sports from the perspective of trying to maximize your performance in one sport is a comparison between the upbringing of Tiger Woods and Roger Federer. So the story goes that Tiger was playing golf and nothing else from day one, whereas Federer was playing lots of different sports and only ended up specializing in tennis when he got a bit older. And although they both reached the top of their respective sports, allegedly the Federer approach, this playing lots of different sports first and then picking your final sport later or specializing later, is much more common in elite and professional athletes. I was a little hesitant to cite this as evidence for the merits of playing lots of different sports and the idea that taking a more generalist approach can actually help with specialization. Because in a post-replication crisis world, I'm a little reluctant to take the blogs and books that talk about these things at face value when they say the science says that playing lots of sports is better than playing one sport if you're trying to turn pro. That's not to say, of course, that it isn't true. It certainly could be. I just wanted to flag this and maybe take what I said with a pinch of salt. So this is the introductory video in a series I'm planning where I'll look at different sports and relate their usefulness back to volleyball, as hopefully it'll be interesting, but like I said, the more awareness you have of the crossover between sports, the bigger that crossover effect I think is. I think people are generally really aware of the physical skills that carry over from sport to sport. For example, you often get people who start playing volleyball say, oh, well, I used to play tennis, so it's no surprise that I'm good at serving and spiking. I'm really comfortable with my hand above my head. Or, well, I used to play basketball, so it's no surprise I can jump really high. But I think they're much less aware, or at least it's much less talked about, is the mental and psychological skills that carry over from sport to sport. There's so many here to talk about, but a quick example of what's to come in future videos on this topic. So a good example is serving after a timeout in volleyball. And it's really well known in volleyball that coaches will take this timeout loads of the time to break a server's rhythm, and then it's almost a running joke at this point that you come back on court, the guy misses serve, and then maybe you turn to your coach and go, yeah, that's your coach's point because it's because of this timeout that the guy missed. So let's think about why this is the case. I'd say in a sentence, it's because you've lost your rhythm and now you're thinking about what you're doing too much. So maybe it's the case that you know the other coach has called this timeout because he wants you to miss because you just served 3 aces. And so now you're thinking, oh God, I've got to put this serve in. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you've gotten completely distracted by what your coach is talking about and the tactics he's giving you when he's talking to you in the timeout. And so now you're not thinking about anything, but in a slightly unproductive way, we're kind of absentmindedly just going hitting a serve without any real focus. So let's come back to volleyball and now think about a different sport, golf. So when you play golf, a round's going to last maybe 4 hours. You obviously only spend a few minutes actually stood over the ball thinking about hitting it. Naturally then, no one can spend 4 hours in a laser focused state the whole time. So you have to get really, really good at switching on and off. So you develop good routines and techniques to be able to refocus ready for your next shot. I'll go into more detail about what these are and how exactly they can help your volleyball in future videos. So when you play golf, you're going to be constantly practicing this skill that you need to be good at serving after a timeout in volleyball, or generally dealing with disruption and having your rhythm be broken. That's not to say, of course, that you can't learn these lessons from playing volleyball or that you have to play golf to be able to learn them. My point is that I think it's way more apparent playing golf because if you read anything about golf in a book or online or watch some YouTube videos, people will be constantly talking about your pre-shot routine, how you get into a rhythm, what to do if something breaks your rhythm. Whereas in volleyball, this is much, much less talked about. So as I say, I think you're more likely to get good at this skill and then you can take it from golf where you happen to practice it all the time and apply it to volleyball where it's less specific. And admittedly in volleyball, it's not just timeouts that can break your rhythm, it's other things that can happen. Really, really long rallies, arguing with the ref, someone needing to tie their shoe. All of these things can break your rhythm and make it harder to get back into the flow of how you want to be playing. I mentioned books and YouTubes and other resources that are out there to learn about golf. And that's one of the other huge benefits of trying to take the skills from other sports and apply them to volleyball, is that if you want to read a book on sports psychology, if you go online and have a look, loads and loads and loads of the books on there are about golf or about other sports that aren't volleyball. Sadly, volleyball is not a big enough sport where there's tons and tons of material being written about it because the market's not there, whereas it is in other sports. So if you're at least familiar with golf or you've played a bit and you go and read a book about putting, it's going to be much easier to take those skills that it talks about in there and then apply them to volleyball than it would be if you'd never picked up a golf club or you had no interest in the sport at all. In this series then, I'll be looking at more sports in more detail and the next video will be on golf. We'll be looking at how the physical and mental skills in golf can help you make you a better volleyball player.